It's now 11:05 a.m. We shall begin our session for today. We are really excited to host this webinar looking at the issue of SMEs and COVID-19 with a theme of reinventing, reimagining to survive and thrive. I'm delighted to have a panel that can speak to this topic very, very adequately. And I will start off by introducing the panel, which comprises a team from ABSA, Moses Mudui, who oversees strategy, Chiera Waithaka, who oversees matters risk, and Elizabeth Rasuna, who is involved in the retail department of the bank where SMEs are hosted. At Strathmore, we have Dr. Njenga. Unfortunately, Dr. Njenga had a commitment, and so in his place, we'll have some opening remarks from Dr. Angela Ndunge, who's a Deputy Executive Dean, and then the portion that would have been handled by Dr. Njenga, we will have Rosemary Okelo Olale, who's the director of one of our hubs, and we also have Dr. David Madhuva. And so to kick us off, I shall invite Dr. Angela Ndunge, just to invite us to this session on behalf of Strathmore, and then we shall move immediately to the panel. Dr. Ndunge.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All internet protocols are observed. I don't know how these protocols are mentioned online, but I will like to them. I welcome you to this webinar on behalf of Strathmore University. As I mentioned, and has to attend analysis, so any apologies. I think this webinar comes in at a very interesting time for us. The Strathmore University was among the first institutions to actually ask as a result among the educational institutions. And that journey has been very exciting because we were able to move on to the remote learning via the internet and start to utilize our digital capabilities quite in a larger extent than we actually did. So even as we start this webinar, this is something maybe if we were planning for it as a face-to-face event, maybe it would have taken longer to get it going. So even as you're beginning these conversations and exploring what this pandemic situation has meant for the SMEs and looking at issues around sustainability, I know there's a temptation to really focus on the challenges, but I have seen many great opportunities come about during this period. And maybe even as we go on to survive, having a moment to also reflect and look at, have our heads above the water and see where is everything going? Where are the new opportunities that we can harness? And for us as a business school, we are truly honored to be continuously partnering with institutions such as ABSA, who have a Pan-African outlook to how they are doing business. And we at the business school, we are also a Pan-African business school looking to see how we can continuously support the SMEs and also continuously support the businesses in our continent to look just beyond their own borders and see how they can harness also their opportunities that have been brought about by this whole digital transformation. I believe now virtually we are borderless. So that also comes on with quite a number of opportunities that together we can begin to think about and see how we can tap into that. Again, for the ABSA community, we are very grateful for the partnership. I know we have done a lot in terms of training your staff and now working together to, again, hold these events and also other trainings that are focused in the SME sector is a new thing for us in our partnership. So we are really excited to see how this journey evolves and how we continue to build each other. So welcome everybody, and now to hand over the meeting to Martin, moderator. Please feel free to continue to share this. We are working to see how through these forums we can better advocate for SMEs. We can do better research that will help you improve in your businesses. So this is really a good opportunity for us as well. Karibuni. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ndunge. And as you leave, please pass our regards to Dr. Njenga. And we hope at some future opportunity we'll have a chance to engage him.
Thank you very much, Martin.
All right. Thank you. And so then we kick off the rest of the panel. Moses, on behalf of ABSA, I want to switch over to you, and maybe you give some opening remarks. We'll try to have each panelist give 5 minutes of opening remarks, and try and couch them around our theme for today, reimagining to survive and thrive in this era of COVID-19 with a focus on SMEs. Over to you, Moses.
No, thank you very much, Martin, and welcome everybody to today's session. Just to first echo the words of Dr. Ndunge that we seek to partner more broadly with institutions with the like-minded objectives like ourselves to make sure we are there and present to provide guidance and support whatever we can. So first of all is to thank the Strathmore community on behalf of ABSA. Very, very thankful for the partnership. So I think, Martin, just focusing on today's conversation and also sharing some insights on what here at ABSA we've done. I think when this crisis hit us, it came quite thick and fast, and it's one in a 300 event where we cannot look at history and say we know what we need to do. There isn't a toolkit that anyone has on how to deal with this crisis. But what we did is, the first thing is to make sure that the safety and wellness of our employees is protected and paramount. We like to say at ABSA, our people are our strength. So how we made sure that everybody across the continent, about 40,000 people, 3,000 people here in Kenya, that they're safe, they're sound, their families are protected, and that we can set protocols that allow our colleagues to be safe and well wherever they are. We went on and decided then we needed to make sure that people can work from home. So today, as we speak, about 30,000 of the 40,000 people are working from home comfortably. And for the 10,000, and that number here in Kenya is about 1,500 people are working from home. About 1,500 have to come in every day. They're coming in shifts that allow their wellness to be protected. They're opening branches because we are open for business, to be there for customers. So we are really following a very clear process on how to make sure our employees are safe. And I'm sure every business person today and every small business and every company, including everyone who's joined us, has put in place measures that ensure that people's lives matter, people's lives are protected, that people come first in this crisis. I think the second thing then, which really dovetails very well in the conversation today, is how do we then make sure that our business or businesses in general come out of this space intact? You know very well that unless we come out of this situation intact, we don't have a business to talk about. So whether it's a small business, a large company, a family business, or a bank like ourselves, then the next step, it becomes how we protect and make sure we are intact as a business to come out of this. And for us, this is very important because as a bank, we believe that for our business to come out of this intact, our customers have to come out of this intact. We will not have a business to talk about if at the end of this cycle, small businesses are not protected and in a way that they come out of this with a foundation to think about the future. So we came with multiple programs, and my colleagues will talk about this, especially Elizabeth and Shera, around ensuring that just imagine a hotel that has had to close down because there's no tourism and there are no guests allowed in an hotel, and how how difficult it will be and inconsiderate it will be for us as a bank to not extend to them their payment moratorium. So we've taken very broad measures to make sure that where we can, we protect businesses to come out of this, because also it's a shared responsibility. Shared responsibility because once we protect our business to come out of this situation intact, they too can extend that and protect livelihoods. You know, whether you're reducing half of your workforce as opposed to the entire workforce, giving you payment reliefs allows you to have the extra cash flow to make sure you can protect livelihoods. Goods and services can move around. Small businesses can stay open to the extent that they can. And people are not losing their jobs as they would in the event that banks like ourselves do not step in. I think that the third step really is then thinking about the long term. Once you make sure that the short term is taken care of, that your people are safe, that banks and other partners you work with have provided you the reliefs that you need and you must have to come out of this intact, then the longer term conversation checks in, which is about shared responsibility. And for us, Martin, as an institution, the way we think about this is to say, we cannot have a long-term future unless we are in this together. If banks and governments and businesses and private sector in general do not work together in tandem, there's no future to talk about. And so the concept of shared value really then kicks in here. We don't know how long this crisis will take. We don't know when the health crisis will be over. But we know for sure as we come out of the other side, there will be natural winners and losers. There will be people who would have navigated the crisis collectively as a people. And I'm just talking more broadly and more globally. And there'll be people who will find it difficult because everyone sought to maximize their own, whether profit or returns or cash flow, how much they can donate. So I think the long term has to be really seen in the context of shared value and shared responsibility. And here's where we need the business community and small businesses to take a look at, once you get extensions from your partners for your business to stay steady, as we've done with payment moratoriums and whatnot, how do you then protect livelihoods for people not to lose jobs more broad-based, so that when we come out of this together and we are thinking about the long term, there's a shared foundation on how we can face the next phase. But just to conclude my remarks, at ABSA, we are very much open to work with our partners and our customers to come up with ways in which we can support you. But we have to be in this together. We have to play a part, all of us collectively, to make sure we're coming out of this together and stronger. Martin, I'll just pass that back to you, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Moses. You touched on quite a number of themes. The safety of people, so the public health dimension. We received questions along those lines. You talked about taking measures to help business continuity and shared responsibility, creating shared value. So a little bit later, I'll come back to that. But let me switch over to Elizabeth, just remaining with ABSA. Dr. Madhuva and Rosemary, you'll wait a little bit. I'll come back to Strathmore. Elizabeth, Moses spoke to various products, various strategies as a bank that you're focusing on to assist, in particular, the SME sector, more broadly, all your various clients. In your opening remarks, could you touch on that a little bit? And then we'll shift to Chiera on the issue of risk and just how to handle this uncertainty during the period. Elizabeth?
Thank you very much, Martin. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and to talk about SMEs. I think SMEs over the last couple of years have taken a key part of our business in the bank, and simply because SMEs do form a key component of our business environment in Kenya today. I don't think we would be where we are if we did not support SMEs, and because we need them to be able to drive our economy. SMEs are very important to our business today, and therefore we do focus on them. Now, as I was saying earlier, the SMEs have a lot of issues, and some of the issues that we've noted, over the last couple of years is access to finance, access to market, access to information, and even access to support in terms of mentorship and coaching. And these are things that we do know we have to weave into our everyday engagement with the SMEs to be able to take them through this difficult period. And therefore, as a bank, we have taken the position to be able to partner. Like Moses said earlier on, I don't think we can do this alone. We need to partner with the SMEs and with like-minded organizations, being some of our clients in the corporate and investment banking industries, government, and like-minded partners to be able to support the SMEs by and large. Now, what we have then done as a bank is try to take a position, and I know we work very closely with our risk credit strategy in the bank to be able to provide SMEs a view of how they can go through this pandemic and reemerge on the other side stronger, better, more informed. And some of the things that the bank is then doing to ensure that we can get this organized is, for one, making sure that apart from just providing non-financial, we also opportunities. We also have non-financial opportunities. And I think we'll be talking a little bit more about that as we move along, because that is a critical component, because not everyone, I know, a lot of the SMEs will be focused on lending, but there's also the non-financial piece that we need to always ramp up in environments like this, and to make sure that we're ready for whatever comes moving forward. So as a bank, just giving you a brief overview of what we have done, is one of the things critical in this pandemic environment was to provide a repayment relief as aligned with what the government had guided us on. We have provided relief of between 3 months all the way to 12 months, depending on the requests from the customers, but also depending on what the industry that they operate in require. Over and above that also, we have provided more strategic opportunities around the digital platform to enable customers to be protected, one, to be able to operate from the comforts of their homes, their offices. We have then, noting that they need to go digital, waived some of the fees and costs aligned with those platforms, so that not only do we provide them with those to be able to pay salaries and to engage with the statutory payments, but to give them a relief in terms of how, the costs for their business. Because in this environment, costs becomes a key component for SMEs to control, because it's not business as usual anymore. Apart from that, we've also engaged in, like I mentioned earlier, in professional and advisory financial training services, which we have started off earlier on this week by providing businesses with online training on how to take their businesses online. So to ensure that businesses understand the environment and are able to move forward. So I think just to stop there for now, but knowing that we are looking to partner, we do not claim to know everything, but I think what we have tried to really do is to engage with the businesses across Kenya, going down to the various branches that we have, sitting with our clients to fully understand what the impact is and to try and be proactive in helping them manage the situation as it is. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And in your closing comments, I think I will give you the last word to talk about 1 or 2 practical things for the businesses that I sense are here and want to know if they can engage with you as a bank, ABSA, but you as a banking industry and the financial services sector, where do they start? And as ABSA, can you be a point of contact? So I'll leave that towards the end. Elizabeth, you'll prepare. Chiera, Elizabeth touched on various issues. Partnering to help execute the strategies of government. This idea of operating in a digital realm. Moses alluded that we are not quite sure how long the COVID-19 environment will persist and engage. As a bank, how have you adjusted to this new reality? And when you think of risk, both your internal risk, but also risk for enterprises engaging with you as an institution, could you share some comments focusing on this issue of risk? You think returns, you think risk. Try and unpack this for us in your context as a bank. Chiera.
All right, fine, thank you. So, and to your questions, I think in our view, the pandemic risk has changed our concept of risk. Typically, the way we managed risk before was about controls. It was about whether you're happy to accept the risk. Stuff like credit risk is something that we took as our usual course of business. If you think about operational risk, it was about building resilience. It was about building controls to ensure that those events don't happen that you choose to mitigate. And insurance and transfer of risk was some of the processes we followed there. So it's not, I don't think any of us would have planned how to avoid this and how to run through this process. I mean, how to manage this risk. So to that extent, your tool set is about your navigation of the crisis. So when you talk about our external clients, we start off by saying, well, in this era today, your immediate concern is liquidity. So to that extent, if liquidity is your immediate concern, what are the key sets of measures that you take in terms of liquidity? You're holding on to stock longer, debtors are taking longer to pay. So effectively, you're saying to yourself then, obviously the first step is to define a necessary expenditure, but then you have to partner with your bank, which would be for us as what we're doing with our clients is to say, okay, let's extend your working capital loans, let's give you cash flow relief. So in totality, what we're saying is that we know you need liquidity to survive this process. We're happy to note that a lot of our SME clients out there are committed to keeping people on their payroll. I think that's a fantastic thing. It shows that SMEs still remain almost a social safety net of a developing nation because they keep people employed and people able to keep their livelihoods. So the payment holiday aspect for us is for you to get through the liquidity crisis. However, if we think about risk management, we know that this current scenario is going to jump into a couple of scenarios. The optimistic side of it is that we will have a sharp recovery. In hindsight, that possibility is dimming more and more as we go through the curve. The long-term recession is perhaps something that's a high probability, and potentially, if you have, say, perhaps a mutation of the virus or a rapid growth of the curve, you could also go into economic shock as a country. So for our clients and for medium term, we've taken a sector-based approach and said, okay, we believe in a sector that will experience long-term depressed demand. And I think we can almost say almost every industry is going to go through this in the next 1 year. We think it's time to start as businesses evaluating your costs. And one of the key costs that a business has is debt repayment, especially when they have debt on their books. So we are happy to partner with our clients. We've been to give out extensions of loans to reduce the debt installments, and in fact, therefore, allow them free cash flow, because you've got to work on your fixed costs today with the knowledge that your demand is going to be depressed over the long haul. I don't think this V-shaped recovery or U-shaped, whatever, those letters that we use, I think we're talking about an economic reset. And I think people need to understand that the business model fundamentally has to be redesigned, and people need to look at simple things like, what is the operational cost? What does it mean if your demand or your revenue drops by 20%? So as a bank, that is part of the business that we sit with our clients. We're giving, for seasonal businesses, we give them principal and interest moratoriums until the next cycle. So the flower industry, the agriculture sectors, which are seasonal, tourism as well. And for manufacturing, we're then saying, okay, do you have a 5-year loan? Can we move it to 6-7 years? We're happy to say that these measures have, as Elizabeth will show, we've made significant numbers in terms of our restructures. I think in terms of percentages of the book, we do accept that we may not get it perfect. I think what I ask clients is that, how can you make sure that you give us the right confidence that if you're spending someone's deposits to lend to you, we actually do have the capability that that will manage the risk going forward. So I think, Martin, just quickly, just to tie up, I think the regulator has been very useful in the banking industry, has been very supportive, managed the classification of loans, positions, allowed for cash reserves to be dropped for banks to allow them to extend more liquidity. I think that has been a very progressive way of looking at things. Internally, from an operational risk point of view, we are managing our internal processes in terms of what are the key risks that these new ways of working brings about. The central bank and our board has board crisis committee regulation. We have a pandemic response plan which covers operational issues, health and safety of our employees, which is critical because our people remain critical to service delivery, even if they're working remotely. There are key risks that have come up: data management, cybercrime. That is something that we need to provide views of how to manage that in terms of new controls. And ultimately, just to wrap up, we are continuously looking at the scenarios, looking at how they evolve, looking at what it means for impairment and capital. And we're glad to say that the banking industry and apps as well, we feel that we're solidly capitalized. I mean, we have solid capital, sufficient liquidity to run through this crisis and be part of rebuilding the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That was very insightful. And I think for corporates that might be on this call, medium enterprises, you've essentially given them an interesting blueprint of how ABSA is navigating this challenge, working with regulator, with government, and various partners. Let me build on that and go to Dr. Madhuva. David Madhuva, you're trained as an accountant. You work with undergraduates, overseeing an entire department at the business school. And Dr. Ndunge mentioned Strathmore has also restructured, repurposed. Along the lines that Chiera and Moses have reflected in the context of ABSA, and Elizabeth has elucidated in the context of the clients and suppliers of ABSA. Dr. Madhuva, what's the Strathmore story at a very tactical level? And speak to the small and particularly micro enterprises here. Where do they plug in? Some are lost, some are struggling. Where do they plug in? And then I'll move to a little bit more strategic dimension with Rosemary. Dr. Madhuva, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the forum. I'm very glad to see this happen. As a university, one of the things that got us thinking is when this situation struck, we had to look at our stakeholders, the people we deal with, and figuring out how can we help as responsible citizens. What do we need to do to reach out to them, get them engaged, get them feel that we are together in this. And I remember in one of the many discussions we had was how do we get in touch with our SMEs who we've really worked with time and again, and how do we get to get them going, just show them that we are together and share and see how best we can help each other. Because I think the COVID situation came in with and everyone is struggling to figure out how do we continue, how do we survive, how do we thrive. As Strathmore University, as Strathmore Business School, we thought of these webinars, and I'm very happy to see one happening today. Thank you, the team from ABSA. And I look forward to many of these things happening because it's part of our engagement when it comes to the stakeholders we deal with. So it falls squarely in the things that we've put in place to help keep our entrepreneurs engaged and also give them a chance to share their views, their experiences, and seek help. We see how we can help each other. Now, as a business school, we've done quite a number of things for SMEs, and we continue doing them. Very importantly to this is what I think Elizabeth was talking about, especially the non-financial, engagements or initiatives that we have from the business school, which have proven to be very critical towards supporting SMEs. And by this, I'm referring to things like, very importantly, and at the core of our business is coaching. And I think now during these COVID times, where SMEs are really hit, and I know as we engage, we are talking about those who are suffering now, but we should keep in mind, out of the 7.41 million SMEs we have in the country, quite a number of them have already closed shop. So we should also be thinking about them and figuring out how can we, reach out and help them and see how to get them back to their footing, even as we deal with those who are surviving. And that's a very big question to me. And there, coaching can really help a lot, which we do as a business school. As away from that, we've done very many programs for SMEs through our Strathmore Enterprise Development Center. We run so many programs for SMEs cutting across, even starting a business, managing it, growing it, and seeing even how you can move I know the forum today talks about SMEs, but we also have the M, the micro, seeing how you can move from being a micro enterprise to a small enterprise to a medium enterprise, and who knows, to a large enterprise. We've actually done studies and surveys for different entities, trying to help them see what needs to be done to help move SMEs to the next level, and move away from this traditional norm of most SMEs rarely get to see their second birthday. That's something that has been caught to us. We also have programs that we run for those established businesses, and here we are talking about we have a program we call the Owner Manager Program, which again tries to engage the owners of these SMEs in various ways, and just giving them tips on what we can do, to grow the business and to keep it going. Now, away from the trainings, we have these networking and information exchange forums, because I think our team from ABSA there spoke about access to information as one of the key issues, constraints that SMEs are facing. For this, as a business school, we have purposed, and especially during these COVID times, we are really thinking about what more can we do to ensure that SMEs get to engage, network, share information, exchange information, talk to each other, and just keep in touch with each other, instead of struggling with your issues alone, and yet there could be a solution elsewhere. And by this, I'm referring to things like conferences, which we've held as a business school. We've, if you remember, some times back, we had a very big conference, even where our president came in, and there were real solutions suggested, which were offered and implemented on the ground. And when we see these things happening, even basic things like electricity, things to do with sewerage issues, we are usually very happy when we see that happening as real outcomes out of this networking and information exchange forums. You already seen we have the webinar with us, which is very welcome. Partnerships with like-minded organizations and individuals like ABSA with us today this morning. And as a business school, we are also thinking of a dedicated platform to engage SMEs. That is very critical for us, because we want, as a business school, to have a platform where SMEs, can reach out and they can, engage in various ways and do a lot. There's a lot we can do in that kind of platform. Martin spoke about the issue of, we have undergraduate students with us who, some of them have started their own businesses, others look out to see where they can help. And as a university, we are open. We are an entrepreneurial university, and our students themselves are taking entrepreneurship courses, and they can support in different ways. Now, just to wrap up, we cannot leave this information out there without putting it nicely in a useful way to inform other things like practice and how we do business. As a business school, we are very keen to put your stories as entrepreneurs together. And here I'm referring to case studies. We really welcome those kind of things, because they are the ones we use for training. And here we are looking for real life experiences on the ground, so that we bring them back to class and use them, for participants to, give their feedback, share their opinions, make decisions, and so forth and so forth. Lastly, I'm very happy to hear that one of the longer term goals and objectives here is to see how we can work together and, bring in this concept of shared value, because we have to think of long-term existence of enterprises, of SMEs. This thing of, SMEs rarely get to reach their third year needs to be seriously thought through, because it's something that has been with us, and it speaks to sustainability. And if we are starting businesses which collapse after 3 years, then obviously there we are not achieving our goals. Martin, I will stop at that. And I look forward to more,
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. David, I was laughing a little bit. I could see Elizabeth nodding her head as you kept talking of each of those issues. And I'm sensing there might be room for partnership as we address SMEs looking at specific things. For the attendees, you may notice we have a few other names. I have some co-hosts, Dr. Mumbi Washira, Caroline Munene, Jane Wayaki, Julius Wibo, and Bildad Nyongesa, who's reached out to you. So we have a team that's tracking your questions. I already have a few. For my panelists, if you look at your chat feature, I've sent questions. Elizabeth, you have 2. Chiera, you have 1. Madhuva, you have 1. Moses, you have 1. And I'm sure, Rosemary, you'll get 1 or 2. So after this, I'll just verbalize those questions and you can start giving some thought to them. Rosemary, I would like you to take a strategic. Madhuva talked about FORA, the Presidential Forum in 2018, roundtable. And I want to assume our leaders are engaging the government at the highest levels, maybe even this very minute. I also want to mention a webinar we had last week with Dr. Njenga with Talbag Foundation, a global foundation that's thinking of the future, reimagining the future. You are quite integral in that. Just 2 days ago, myself and our students attended a session on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area with the CEO, His Excellency Mene from South Africa, based in Ethiopia and ultimately Ghana. Rosemary, give us a bit of a strategic view on SMEs. And I like a phrase you use, 5-kilometer radius. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mavuba, and thank you, APSA team, and thank you for all the participants that are with us today. It's such an honor to have you and discuss this, what we call a very important issue in regards to the future and what SME is going on. It's no wonder that even across Africa, every stakeholders and policymakers are now sitting to look at the impact of COVID on SMEs and its future. And as Strathmore, we are honored to have APSA with us to start discussing this very important issue about the future of this country anchored in SMEs. You all know that the future of economic growth is actually dependent on the engine of SMEs. And research shows that 60% of the economic growth is actually will be done by SMEs, but it was be done to even look into this subject matter even before COVID. And now with COVID, it's now what we call is going beyond 0 degree status. But there's a light at the end of it. The fact that SMEs who are present here to discuss the subject matter is because they understand what they are going through, but also they see partners like Strathmore and APSA, what they are able to do. The pandemic has caused a lot of havoc, has created a lot of dismay, but the strategical approach is that other countries are seeing that looking inward, having a policy framework that can be looking inward in support of SME is important to ensure that SME can again leverage its status in the market sector. And as Strathmore, as Dr. Madhuba had said, we've had various programs, and one of such key programs was the SME Presidential Roundtable Dialogue, which made us realize that SME can become a powerhouse for the Kenyan economy if we allow them to be on the table. It was amazing to see traders from Kikomba, Racecourse, and even other parts of this country engaging the president one-on-one and say, this is what we are going through and this is what you are able to do. It's not only access to finance, it's what we call ecosystem needs to be looked into. And I've seen a question said that what is Strathmore doing? And Strathmore being a leading entrepreneur university, we've talked about the short courses that we're doing, the research work we're doing, and also the hubs that we are planning to have across the country for SMEs to come together. We want the Wanjikos to come together and start having the voices to talk about what they are going through, and these voices to have their space at the policy level, so that policy making should not be making an abstract, should be made with a knowledge of what Wanjiko is going through. Moses talked about the shared value. The shared value means that you have the consumer at the center, and for us, SME needs to be at the center, that unless we have a shared value that make SME become profitable, become economically viable, then we'll have lost our vision of service to the society as Strathmore, but also in partnering with organizations like APSA, who have agreed to help SME to go to actually address this pandemic. I look at the pandemic in a fresh eyes. We need to actually, it's a challenge I'm giving to those who are present. We've not done actually the economic impact to the SMEs to the up to 1 cent. We need to say, as we are seated here, that this is how much we've lost through SME during this pandemic. For the last 2 months, we've been experiencing the lockdown. We need to actually have data that showcase the various types of SMEs and how they're affected, especially the tour industry, since mobility has been actually not been allowed, and also the mama mboga. We need to also come as, if we are looking post-COVID, with actually a real-time research that will showcase this is what we went through and this is what we are planning to work. And as Strathmore, this is the areas we want. And also other areas that have been ignored is training and professionalizing SMEs to be able to understand how to manage their finance, but also to understand the market sector and to have a framework where they can be seeing that this is what is coming their way. That our SMEs have survived fighting with imports from other parts of the country, second-hand clothes, among others. I have seen South Africa, having attended the SMEs platform last week, they've actually made a rule that everything that will be manufactured within their country and be consumed will be from their local industries, and SME will be given a priority. And they have started what we call SME fund. We need to have a SME fund that can give that life to the mama mboga to restart their sector. And as I conclude, Martin, I want us, what are the key things we need to look into in strengthening the sector? We need to come up with a key strengthening key things here. As Strathmore, online platform is going to be a key role because we know time will be a factor, and managing time from a small scale to coming to class will be a key factor. So Dr. Angela talked about the executive courses. Training of SMEs is going to be a priority for Strathmore, and because that's the future of work. And strengthening this, the SMEs in terms of knowledge will also be a key sector. And that training means that you don't have, from coaching to professionalizing, we are going to look into it. And with this platform, we can affirm the people who are present that Strathmore is open for partnership. Strathmore is ready to look into ways we can be called upon to ensure that SME be seen as the engine growth, as be seen as the future of work, and seen as actually the way out for Kenya. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Rosemary. And as our head of delegation, to borrow that phrase, in this setting, I hope you can take some of the ideas you're receiving here onwards to Dr. Njenga in his absence. And it's my desire and hope that they will make it all the way to the highest levels of government. I anticipate we have policymakers in this session. Rosemary, can we ask you to do that for us? And I'll go around. For the attendees, you've got fantastic questions. We've got about 156 participants. We had well over 200 signing up. And I noticed we've got representation from 13 countries. This is for my panel as we prepare for the Q&A. I will announce at 12 sharp because we had committed this session would only be an hour long. And anybody who needs to drop out at that point, you're welcome to do so, but I'll beg of the panelists, if you can spare just an extra 10 minutes or at most 15 minutes, if it's okay with you, just to make sure I've taken all the questions. The countries represented are Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, Tanzania, Australia, Netherlands, Burundi, Uganda, Nigeria, Palestine, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and India. So you have a very global audience. And from a look of the participant list, you have everything from Wanjiko, who Rosemary alluded to, all the way to very large corporates. I've seen, we've got even multinational companies, Safaricom, and their holding companies are Vodafone. So you have a fairly continental audience. For the questions. I'll just read through some of them. Elizabeth, I'll give you the last word. So if it's okay, let me start with Chiera, and then I can move to Dr. Madhuva, and then we can go to Rosemary, and then Moses, and then Elizabeth, you'll have the last word. I'll just read the questions so that the Q&A you can address as many as you can. You can prepare your pens. So we've got a set of questions. Some are specifically directed to panelists. So Elizabeth, there's a question on whether the bank can absorb charges for transfer etc. On the basis of emerging trends in the SME sector due to COVID. There's a question on reduction of interest rates. I think that one, Moses, you could speak to. There's a question on Strathmore enterprise engagements. Are these online? Will Strathmore be willing to offer online webinars for free? So we have this webinar, but Madhuva, is there anything else happening online? Rosemary, are there other things that can happen in the long run? There's questions, let me see, practically for your customers, ABSA, what's the criteria for qualifying for a moratorium? So that might be a Chiera question. There were also questions we received. Let me see if I missed anything here. So for panelists, sorry, for attendees, if you have any other questions, please bring those up. There were more generic questions. Has government set aside any funds to research for treatment? There was one that was more in the public health realm. The surgical masks, are they effective? So Dr. Madhuva, you can speak about the other webinars, and Rosemary, that we have as part of this series. And Caroline Monene, we have emails of all the attendees. Maybe we can send that later. There's a question on how do people think long-term versus short-term? Is this thing going to last? Chair, I think you spoke to that. There's a question on very tactical, missing project milestones. How do people navigate that? So in your own settings as ABSA, in your day-to-day jobs and your teams, they may be missing milestones. Maybe you can reflect a little bit practically. There's a question of grants that has come over and over again. So generally, if you can speak to grants, this could be maybe as opposed to loans and debt, are there ways individuals can access grants locally, regionally, domestically? There's a question on virtual businesses. I think we've spoken to that quite a bit. So for Dr. Madhuva, Elizabeth, if some of the SMEs here wanted to become digital, where do they go? There's a question on certificate of participation when they take courses. Dr. Madhuva, will they get a certificate? There are questions on climate and weather. So for Moses, maybe you can speak at a strategic level, how we think about issues of all these other SDGs, all these bigger things happening. Can new clients less than 3 months apply for a business loan? For Rosemary, regional value chains and continental free trade area, SMEs having a soft landing in this period of pandemic, say something to that. For anyone on the panel, can you advise as a security company on issues of business continuity? If COVID-19 prolongs, most of clients have closed, what does a security company do? And then the last one, are you doing loan repayment structure for your SME during the pandemic? Shed more light. So I've covered many things. We have about 10, 15 minutes. We hit the 1 hour mark at noon. I hope it was okay to keep you an extra 10, 15 minutes, just so that we can ensure all the 150 on the call are heard, and for those who will engage in recordings in future. So let me start with, why don't I start with Dr. Madhuva, and then I go to Chiera, and then I go to Rosemary, and then Moses, and then Elizabeth. Dr. Madhuva, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. I'll start with the first one, the online courses or online webinars. Yes, we plan to hold online webinars moving forward from this one, and they will be free. The webinars will be free, just like this one. But we plan to have a series of webinars. We have our entrepreneurs in mind as we run these webinars. So far, we've had webinars covering different things. And now that you've signed up for this one, as you heard Martin say rightly there, we have Caroline who is taking care of all the webinars in the business school. And I'm sure she has a record of your registration. You remember when you're registering, you gave us details. We shall be reaching out whenever we have these kind of webinars. And please keep checking and sign up and let's engage. We also have, we are developing an online platform for the business school where we can have different programs running. It's a platform we are calling Hewani. Maybe Martin, if you have the link to Hewani, you can share it with the participants who are with us today so that they can check, they can visit and...
I'll share that at the very end. I'll tell them about digital.strathmore.edu. So if you remember nothing else out of this session for Strathmore, just remember digital.strathmore.edu. Back to you, Dr. Madhuva.
Thank you very much. And on that platform, we'll have many things happening. Starting with even this webinar, I think it was routed through that platform. And we'll have trainings happening. Now that the COVID pandemic is with us, we are thinking of a blend of how we deliver programs, but I see quite a substantial chunk of our programs will be online. You know, as a university, even when the COVID struck and we had to walk away from our physical premises, we've been running online classes through and through for our various degree programs. And the experience has been very good. A lot of learning to be done, but we've learned a lot, including things to do with examinations online. So just to respond to that, yes, we'll have online trainings. You will be able to get a certificate when you attend from Strathmore Business School that we offer for all our programs, the ones which are structured, all right? Once you attend a structured program, you get certification for that. Maybe something small on how do you go digital, and I'm happy with the representation that we have in today's forum. I was just looking at a few case studies out there and just getting some, you know, businesses like in Uganda where we have this online butchery, all right? So you can you know, order something online, then it is brought and such like things. We have guys who are dealing with fresh farm produce, but you order online, then it is brought. There are things they're calling chap, you know, where you can get some payments done and all that. At Strathmore, we have the iLab, which is basically a tech, you know, place where you can get some support from a digital perspective. So if you want to have an online business running, we do have what we call the iLab. And as a business school, we can always link you up with the people we have in the iLab. And also the IBs. All these are like incubation hubs, and they have a lot of focus on technology. And you know, Strathmore is also known for information technology, and we do support in that way. So kindly reach out to us, and we can always assist on that. One thing just before I close it, we, as I had indicated when I was giving my introductory remarks, we've been thinking on how we can have practical, you know, forums for SMEs, even as we operate off the physical premises. And with this, as we develop the online platform where we can get to engage, we are also looking for ideas from yourselves on what you would like to have done in terms of engagement in that platform. So we are designing it, and this is an opportunity for all of us here as entrepreneurs to, you know, give our ideas. So if you see us reaching out to you to share with us what it is that you would like to see on this platform, kindly give us your idea in a very candid way, and we shall see how best to help. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madhuva. Chiera, you are next. And Chiera, as you speak, some of my own undergraduate students, I've got 60 plus in a business planning class. I've got 100 plus in an entrepreneurial leadership class. We meet every Tuesday. You are speaking to that particular audience, and we'll also be training quite a number of individuals in public policy. I know we have some online sessions in a few weeks. So Chiera, for all the questions that were raised to you on this issue of risk, your reflections, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you, Martin. I think risk covers a lot of aspects in terms of credit risk, as well as operational risk, and as well as liquidity and capital. So just, if you allow me to tackle some of the questions that regarded moratoriums and business loans and new loans, and the qualification for that, if that would be fine, because I think it's important that we just show what we're doing with our customers. So in terms of moratorium, the short term, if, as we said, the immediate impact is across the board, so that we recognize that there's a liquidity challenge for all our businesses, from SME all the way to large corporates. And for the payment holidays, and given the guidance by the central bank, we are applying a 3-month holiday if you're an existing customer, without a particularly onerous process. I mean, one has to apply, but we recognize that we're bridging a working capital issue. The one caveat, of course, is that as per the guidelines, you have to have been performing by 1st of March. So if you think about it, I think this is a good reminder that your credit history or your track record actually can be almost your liquidity buffer in an environment where you are exposed to a risk that you had not anticipated. In terms of the longer term moratoriums, for example, people we know have missed the season in terms of business sales. We are then getting a bit more information, getting into in-depth analysis with yourselves as the customers, then saying to ourselves, okay, when is your next cycle due? And there you could possibly have a moratorium for even up to 6 to 12 months, depending on when we think you can get your business back on even ground. Just to mention, in terms of what are the alternatives, I saw a question there about business continuity for security company. And I think we must pick up on some of the conversations that have been held, that in some of this crisis, there's an opportunity that emerges. I mean, the social relations have changed. I mean, Dr. Ari talked about some of the potential home delivery opportunities there. So, and what do security companies have? They have logistics in terms of supervision. So those are some reinventing ourselves could be about taking our resources and actually then moving them to another growth sector that requires the same resources, but may not necessarily be the same business. Although, like I often say, this is a health crisis that has moved into economic and could potentially be a social crisis in the near future. So we need to understand what parts we can play. Some subsectors will grow faster than others. Some may be affected permanently. As a bank, I've seen a question about a farming. I mean, agriculture in terms of food is going to be a critical sector. I think the questions we have to ask ourselves is when it comes to how you approach the sourcing of funding for business, is that, remember, you've got different levels. You've got the own equity where you put in your own money, then you go to a bank, and then perhaps if it's an idea that is far-fetched, to possibly do grants and angel capital investors. So I just remind people, we to remind ourselves that out of every 100 shillings we lend, 10 of it belongs to the shareholder, 90 of it belongs to depositors. So you must come to us and kind of take us through the logic of that business plan. And I think Elizabeth has got a group of people who are in the agriculture sector. She's hired specialists, and I think that's some of the skill set we're trying to build to understand our clients better. So Martin, I think that's in terms of the loan facilities. In terms of resilience, we're managing a lot of our operational risk remotely through data analytics. I think that is the new skill set that is going to be quite keen and clear to achieve if you're going to have remote productivity measures and ability to understand your outputs across several regions or offices.
Thank you, Chiera. We hit the 12 noon mark about 6 minutes ago, just as Chiera was beginning. So for those who are able to join us until now, thank you very much. In case you need to drop off, I should have given my thanks also at the 12 noon mark, Nairobi time. We're dealing with Nairobi time. But in the remaining maybe 6 minutes, just 2 minutes each for Rosemary, for Moses, and for Elizabeth, as your closing thoughts, the questions that were raised. We may spill over a little bit. This session is being recorded, so don't feel constrained in case it's something really important to say, but it would be nice if we're done in about 6 minutes. So we start with Rosemary, your closing thoughts as we finish this session. And on our behalf as Strathmore, hoping that you will take all this and share with Dr. Njenga. There are quite a number of participants who are keen to hear from him. Maybe in a future time we'll be able to engage. Over to you, Rosemary.
Yeah, I'll start with a question that was raised about the Africa Continental Free Trade and what it means to the growth of SME. And as you all know that Kenya signed it last year and is the largest since the World Trade Organization was formed. And this brings the region from Cape, makes the Africa have a free trade area from Cape to Cairo. And the tripartite free trade area includes currently over 29 countries. And members are common markets of Eastern Africa, the COMESA, the EAC, and the SADC region, among others. The population we are talking about is 632 million, and combined with a GDP of 1.3 trillion. And for SME, this is a huge area. And going forward, is an area I'd like to challenge APSA, which is also continental, to look how do we make the continental free trade area become viable for SME? And what kind of value can it bring to SME? And how can you be able to make it? Because already SMEs were trading before. We all know that the informal cross-border trade has been taking center stage and has not been recorded. How can we make this be recorded? But I'm seeing this also in my closing remark, taking us to the next level, that can we be able to address the trade barriers across countries so that SME can be able to trade freely within the intra-country trade? Can we be able to make policies that make tax viable, that something that tax in Kenya is not tax in Uganda, is not tax in Rwanda as it heads to maybe in other parts of Africa? Can we make a uniform tax that can be able to live in? What are the key things we'd like to ensure? Agriculture, other areas of SME, tourism, energy, financial sector. So we need to come with our priority areas as we go forward. And for me is that SME will be, again, the engine growth of intra-trade, and SME will be the job creation. SME will be able to enhance the intergenerational job creation and making youth become viable in the intra-trade area. And SME can be able to redefine, again, education and business training within the inter-trade area in universities such as Strathmore. And this is where we are seeking again, keep on repeating that we cannot have it alone. Partnership with SME and APSA is going to be a key thing to be able to actually leverage the future of SME in Africa using the inter-trade free trade approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and those are very pertinent. I know Kenya as a country is pioneering on behalf of Africa the digital economy blueprint launched in Kigali a year ago, and also is pursuing a free trade agreement with the US, and in parallel is really committed to the continental free trade area. So a lot of strategic and tactical opportunities, is engaging with China, the Belt and Road Initiative. Moses, on behalf of APSA, you've been on a webinar with Harvard Business School. You presented during the Talbot Gathering in November. Globally, I think you've got your finger on the pulse of what's happening. As you close, try and bring that global dimension down to the world of an SME at a medium level, your supplier base, and Wanjiko, in your own words, and then Elizabeth will finish off by making it very tactical, and then we'll close. Moses.
No, thank you, Martin, and it's been really a pleasure to to join this conversation this morning. I think a couple of points on the global landscape and how we connect to that. So clearly, as I said, we don't know how long it will take for the global supply chains to open. Even though we have money in our pockets as businesses, we can't travel. We can't send our goods abroad. We cannot import as we used to do. So it's a really challenging time for us globally in terms of how the economy connects to small businesses and how that connects to the global space. However, it is very important to also spend this time as small businesses answering the question around how will the future of your business look like if this becomes the new reality? If we are not able to export as we used to or import as we used to from these global markets, and if that takes time, how can we begin to build our businesses more locally? And I know even with the local markets and the continental markets opening, if there are lockdowns and supply chains are not as open and travel is not possible, we still have that challenge. So I believe it's a challenge we are facing from all fronts. But I think what we should anticipate is markets becoming more local. So we need to ask ourselves, how do we seize opportunities for more local markets? We need to anticipate that production will be for sectors that are driving local economies first and foremost. When we think about tourism, we need to think about domestic tourism much more closely than we were before. So I think globalization has just become challenged in this environment. It doesn't say that over the long term, those opportunities will not return, but it really just asks us the question, how are we positioning our businesses to be locally relevant first? And how can we make sure local relevance is important? As Rosemary said, there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done around intercontinental trade or intracontinental trade with the government agencies and different policymakers. As a bank, we will be there to take you regional when those markets open. And we continue to work with these stakeholders to continue to take that forward. But let me just close by talking about the SDG question, Martin, and sustainability. And let's just be honest here a little bit. There are 1 million jobs, Jokali jobs today at risk, if you've seen the recent statistics. Almost 100% of all hotels in this country have downsized or closed business. Corporations are laying people left, right, and center to protect their cash and their capital. And an SME finds itself in between that value chain with pressure from consumers. People are not buying because they don't have incomes as they used to. And also the value chain above the SMEs, which is people who used to buy and the SMEs where they distributed up the value chain, were also really squeezed. And we just have to be honest that it's really raining and the rain is beating us really, really hard. And this is going to be a reality with us for some time. And so as a bank and there's a banking industry, what we continue to call out for is in our DNA as banks, we have to be there in good times as well as in bad times. In fact, I think it is during difficult times that banks are most important to economies. And through what Shara's talked about and Elizabeth talked about, we have to continue providing you that umbrella during this rainy season. Because if we're not there for you in the bad times, why should we be there for you in the good times when economies are thriving? So at the core of our DNA is really that. How do we protect livelihoods to make sure that foremost, because above sustainability, Martin, livelihoods matter. That foremost, we talk about lives and livelihoods before we begin to talk about sustainable business models. But then it doesn't mean that we don't think about sustainable business models. And my challenge to small businesses and everyone who's joined is, as we provide you that umbrella to weather the storm, spend the time thinking about how sustainable your business is going to be for the long term. What sectors are you in? What industries are you playing in? How do you distribute? How do you make sure you manage your working capital? Who do you hire to work for you? How can you learn how to do business planning much more acutely to manage this type of down cycles? And I believe with our partnership between APS and Strathmore, we can provide all this knowledge to help you rethink your business model. But please, spend the time rethinking how your business will look like in the future as we provide you that umbrella to weather the rainstorm. And we just have to be honest with ourselves that it's a difficult time. But as I said in the beginning, the power of weathering this storm is collectively having a shared sense of responsibility and working through it together. Martin, thank you very much once again for the time. I'll pause there.
Thank you very much, Moses. And as always, it's quite delightful to us to be able to partner with an institution like yours to address challenges like this. And I know within the next few weeks, probably as early as May, but maybe spilling over into June, we have a course we've prepared along those lines, working with you and ideally your suppliers and your broader network, maybe including SMEs, to explore SDGs. So for Dr. Madhuva and Rosemary working with Dr. Njenga and Dr. Ndunge, this might be something we can do in support of SMEs. Elizabeth, umepewa kazi ngumu. You've been given heavy load, but I know you're fully up to it. And there are two questions that came in. What can SMEs, what can you advise SMEs on how to deal with supply chain interruption? I think Moses has spoken to that. And one that I think is a very good note to finish this session. How do we ensure that we maintain humanness as we work remotely, go digital in most operations, given that the customer experience in doing business is key? So in all this, how do we ensure we don't lose the human touch? So Elizabeth, you close the session for us. Quite a bit that SMEs are asking of us as an industry and a partnership. Over to you.
Thank you, Martin. So as I listen to all the speakers, speaking about the SMEs, it's really refreshing to see that our focus is really on the SME. But over and above this, one of the things I want to come out very clearly is it's a partnership. Like my colleague said, we are here for the good times and the bad times, and it means that we must talk to each other. The bank must talk to the SME on the ground, and the SME also must feel comfortable to be able to speak to us. So I know we are open in all our 85 branches across the country to have these conversations, and we have ably enabled our branch managers and the business bankers who sit in those environments to have those honest and open conversations. Most of the time, we don't, like I mentioned earlier, we just don't look at financial situations. We also look at the non-financial situations and to see the struggles you're going through and the opportunities that you see, and then we craft it together. The key point here is that we need to understand each other's language, because most of the time, there's an element of SMEs not being able to understand financial language, and we also don't understand the SME language. So by having these constant conversations that are not necessarily aligned towards financial requirements, it is important as partners that we know what is actually paining you. In this period of the COVID environment, and this is just not even the COVID environment alone, even before the COVID environment, cash flows is so critical. And if you don't understand how this cash flows, affect your business and how you've gone ahead to have planning, in place, because normally we ask you for your cash flow projections. We ask you for what do you think is going to happen in the future? What is your continuity plan? We poke and try to understand how you've taken, how you're well prepared for the difficult times. And therefore, when you have a difficult time, then how do we then come in? If we don't have those honest conversations, it becomes very difficult. Now, as I say this, I know my colleagues have also spoken about during the difficult time and the fact that cash flows are constrained. That is why the first thing that we came across to talk about is the loan repayment moratorium periods or loan holidays, as we call them, to enable you to keep your loan aside for at least a minimum period of 3 months. And like somebody, I think one of the participants asked, who can get into this? As long as you're a customer of ours and you have a facility right now, you can opt into a 3-month moratorium period with us without much ado. Call your branch manager, reach out to us on the various communication avenues that we've opened up. Please feel free to just say, look, I need help. Give me those 3 months, and it's like Shara said, it's not onerous. We give it to you because we know you need that time to rethink about what you need to do. So this loan repayment has been put aside so that the cash flows that you have are geared towards paying your employees, making sure that you can continue business for the next 3 months. And for those industries and businesses who feel that 3 months are not enough, we're able to give you up, over and above those up to 12 months repayment period, fully understanding what you're going through and understanding what are the key things that need to be true for you to, for us to remove the umbrella and for you to be able to move on, as my colleague mentioned earlier. Apart from this, apart from just giving you this, this short period of a break, we need to know how you're going to reemerge on the other side. And I know my colleagues have also mentioned, how do you reinvent yourself? We are providing a lot of training and, a lot of support, a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring from our branches, from our webinars, from conversations that we're having internally, so that we make sure that you're better able to, get out of this COVID period stronger, wiser, focused, to be able to run your businesses moving forward. And to this end, I know, Martin, we had spoken a little bit about what does supply chain for us mean. And I know this supply chain, has very many ways of, people have very many ways of understanding it. But for me, this is the key point where I say partnerships really matter, because we always call on our corporate banking customers, we call on different businesses that are able to support the SMEs to go forward, to come through so that we can have conversations. Now, why do I say this? Because some of these big companies that, for instance, are in the health industries that are still, going forward, that are in industries that are still strong and able to tide through this corona period, then we are saying, come to us, let's form supply chain management and support for the SMEs that are supporting you. And we're able to manage risks in that environment much more ably. We are able to understand how they're important to you. We're able to provide them with working capital, to be able to perform and therefore be able to support these businesses. Because at the end of the day, when you have these value chains well structured, the banks are always willing to support you, having fully understand what are the risks and being able to mitigate the risks internally. Another question that came through, because even as we do all this, we don't have the luxuries of being able to walk into the branches as we used to do. We don't have the luxuries of being able to, walk the ATMs and things like that. We provided the digital platform. And now this digital platform, another question came through, have we then provided, reduced costs as far as these are concerned? And yes, as a bank, we have noted that this is a cost that is definitely escalating for a lot of our clients, and we have waived charges in response to some of those requirements. And therefore, again, it is important that each and every customer and the people who are looking to be able to partner with us, please feel free to get in touch with any of our branches, use our social media to be able to reach out to us. We are very good at responding as far as that is concerned. Feel free to get in touch with us so that we can have conversations to make sure that we craft solutions, services that can be able to support you in your businesses wherever we are. Last week, in the past week, we have hosted a webinar that speaks to SME businesses being able to go online. Now, the truth of the environment is, you cannot ignore the digital platform. You cannot ignore the fact that we have gone digital in everything and the vast majority of things that we've done. So it is important that businesses understand that they too can have an opportunity to go online. And how do we then partner with them? I'm happy that institutions like, Strathmore were willing to partner with you to make sure that we can continue to edify our clients, make sure that they're better prepared, to reemerge post the COVID environment. So for me, from ABSA, what I can say to the SME and to the businesses that are associated with SMEs, please, our doors are open. And when we speak about partnership, we are very open to be able to have conversations with yourself. And conversations mean that, sometimes you challenge us because we do not understand. And sometimes we also challenge you because we need you to understand what are the risks that we see. And we can work better to ensure that we come out of this environment much, much stronger. So thank you, Martin. I hope I've covered the vast majority of the questions.
Yes, Elizabeth, that was a very strong point to finish at. And just again, reminding all of us, we've got 60 to 80% who've remained until the end of this session. Thank you for persevering for those extra 24 minutes in case you had other commitments and engaging us. COVID-19 and SMEs, reimagining to survive and thrive. That was our theme. We hope we've inspired you. We may not have answered all your questions, but we hope we've given some of you SMEs that may be struggling a lifeline. And for the SMEs that are already moving along this path, we hope sharing our story as corporates, as major institutions, large institutions, universities, we hope the ideas you can pick and run with. And for all those of you out there who can be part of this new world, I had the world that's digital, data analysis, individuals who can reimagine supply chains, even healthcare providers. There's a lot of room to innovate. I'll use that as the finishing point. We'll have many other webinars as Strathmore. This is the 7th in a series, so keep coming back to our website, digital.strathmore.edu. And in your case, Moses, where should people go if they want to learn more and just appreciate what you're doing broadly as ABSA? Do you have a particular location?
Yeah, Martin, I think, thanks everybody. You can always go to absa.africa/ke. So you can always find us there, and we are reachable in all our other channels.
Fantastic. And with that, I shall call this session to a close. Panelists, thank you very much. You've been able to deliver based on the small vision we had, and I hope the attendees can share the same with us. And we look forward to engaging again in future. All the best, good afternoon, and enjoy the rest of your day. Those in Nairobi, others from around the world, enjoy your morning, enjoy your afternoon or evening. We look forward to engaging again later. Goodbye.